Yo, what's going on, guys? Ron here, aka Neos, and today we're going over the YCS 2025 Vegas winning team deck profiles that obviously, they won the whole event. They went undefeated, they didn't drop at all to anybody. A lot of different decks that they played against, including a lot of pure versions of Raizio, where they were playing like pure with like the Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon, stuff like that. Alti Slayer, as you can see, that are in the side deck here. But getting into it, guys, I gotta toot my own horn real quick. I was right. If you were gonna play pure Raziel, the best way to do it was the Sharks, and this is proof of that. I've been saying that, and literally the next day after I post that video, which took me longer than normal because just some stuff in the way, it happens. First place, undefeated, Shark Raziel. Let's get into it. So, they did the same thing like I did, main decking the crossouts for going first. They main deck talents, though they did main deck 3, which is interesting, but we'll get into why as you look into this. There's a lot of 3-ofs here, including obviously the Raziels themselves, and then the 1-ofs, right, for your targets for crossout, right? The Ogre, the Nib, and the Veiler. So yeah, so they played the 1 Nib, the 2 Sharks, Surfacing, Drake, 3 Ice, 3 Sword, 1 Node, 3 EXT, 3 Ash, 1 Ogre, 3 Droll, shout out my boy Droll, Effect Veiler, obviously again for the crossout target, 3 Bonfire, 2 7th Ascension, 3 Tachyon, 3 of the Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Call By, 3 Cross out, 1 Cross, and then 3 Imperm. So, my understanding, right, looking at the deck profile and watching their a little bit of their reasoning and stuff like that, they wanted cards that were both effective going first and second, right? Which I super respect, right? I preach that myself, right? If you're gonna have cards in your deck, I would like them to have utility both going first and going second, as much as possible, right? So they're actually playing a little bit bigger 7th Ascension package because, as you can see, they're playing cards that are hard wins per turn that you can put back. If you draw multiple cross out, if you draw multiple tactics, if you draw multiple Raziels, right? You draw your 1-ofs, right? You can put them back with the 7 Tachyon and get some sort of value out of it, right? It's the same thing that I mentioned with the Drake Shark, right? When you see Drake Shark in hand, you can put the Drake Shark back when searching for the big jaws, right? So they're taking advantage of the fact that this card forces you to put a card back and net -1, and putting that more so in their own advantage, which I highly respect, and I think was obviously a game-winning choice by them. 3 Droll in the main. I've been preaching Droll. Droll is so good and is only better now because of the 7th Ascension and 7th Tachyon. And even they were talking about like how Droll was just crazy. Droll did so much for them. I have my notes over here so I can talk about a couple key points. So they would actually sometimes side the 3rd sword depending on the matchup, right, for their side out patterns. And they would even put Slayer in for going first against Pure. Because just like having it on the crackback whenever like your opponent like they manage to just like make the detonator, right, and like pass back to you, this being there is just like it just clears the board and then they can play, right? They didn't play the Battling Boxer 105 for the search target for the swords or the node because they found the value in searching EXT way more. So like if they got stopped on like ice or whatnot, they would rather just search the EXT and then lock themselves, right, off of the special summon, which Sword is going to do as well. And then so if you go like Ice and like Bonfire or Tachyon for the EXT, right, you put a card back and then you special EXT, you get Sword, there, and then you can make duo drive, and then like do if you can get your duo drive to resolve, you can go ahead and search node and like cross, and then because you can special this, get the other ice, and then you have another ability to special summon, make another like Dugares, right, which they played, which Dugares is. I do not think they played Dugares, actually. Yeah, they did not play Dugares. But that also gives them the advantage to make another 4 if they so chose. Also, throughout the entire event, neither of them bricked. So the two there's the team of 3, right? So they had 2 players play this exact list, and then Jesse Cotton played the Fiendsmith variation, which we'll get to here in a second. And the 2 Shark players did not brick the entire event except for once. There was one time the guy from YNC Collectibles, he said he bricked. Like he had like a somewhat unplayable hand. Otherwise, it was they played every single game. Every out of so many rounds and so many matches, it is insane, right? It's super high consistency, which I also preached about, right? Playing with the Bonfire plus the 7 Tachyon and Ascension, that it just skyrockets your consistency. They also talked about Droll and how Droll was absolutely crazy coming from Birmingham, where like they were playing against people that were drolling them like constantly, and this thing just felt amazing. Again, something else I have been preaching about, because Droll is a lingering floodgate, right? It's so good, especially when they have so much search target, so much engine, the call by, the talents, right? These big blowout strong cards, including Slayer, right? Like Droll plus Slayer is just like clear board, right? Unless they set like Solemn Judgment. So yeah, it's absolutely insane. Another thing, the extra deck they said felt absolutely like perfect, spot on. If you notice, they're actually playing the Star League, which we'll get into again. They had a combo that I will actually show off, which I personally think is very interesting, and I do like it. I don't know if I would personally do it myself, because it dies to Nib Ash, right? So it does protect you from like board breakers like Slayer, Imperm, Ogre, stuff like that with the Star Liege. But and then like it does play somewhat well into just the Nibiru. But me personally, I do think like the combo I showed off previously in my previous video is better. Being able to like insulate yourself, because you're still able to make 2 off of the cards that you have in hand, and their combo relies on you more for your opponent to make a mistake and let you summon both the Star Liege and the Shark, right? Because if you summon Star Liege and then they have the other 2 4s and they nib you there, you're kind of just cooked, because the next play there is like X send to reborn this and this, which obviously won't work if you don't have the second 4 in the grave, but that's fine. Ragna Zero, they also said, was amazing, right? They not only used it as a search target, but also summoned it to use its effect. Like I mentioned before, with your own duo drive, you can, with just having the 1 material under it, right? If you're able to do that, you can actually use this on the crackback to draw off a cross, and then make this, pop a card, and then draw it. And then you have another material under this, and then you can go like, if Duo still has like a material for the, obviously because you need the attack modification, you can use Duo to detach off of both of these, and then you have your search. Baguska, they said, was like, which obviously you can see they did not play, was just not a good enough like lingering floodgate, because they just played so many like breakable like usage of in their deck. Imperm, this, EXT, right? Because they're playing like 3 EXT plus 5 ways to search it. So there's basically like, 8 EXTs in their deck. And so like just Baguska was just not good enough. And like it was really good in their matchup where they played against Pure Rizio, but they were main decking like the Book of Eclipse and I think Book of Moon, which this just cooks like if they have to pass on Baguska. because you EXT send aggregator, target the Baguska, and like if they have to flip it face down, you know it's over, and then if they don't flip it face down, it's negated, right? So that it just made it irrelevant. They also didn't play Typhon because Typhon works way better in your deck when you're playing a significant amount of hand traps, where as you can see they're playing protection and spells to crack into their opponent's board and make sure that their effects go through, right? So hand traps, they're playing the 3 1-ofs, and then the 6 would be the Ash, and then the 9 would be the Droll. And then after that there are no more hand traps, right? So they're playing such a minimum amount of hand traps that the Typhon was just not good enough, which I can understand, right? Because Typhon's very good whenever you can, like, you know, your opponent plays into you, right, and then you can Droll them or something like that. You know, you have, like, you know, 5 hand traps in hand, right, and then, you know, you pass, you prevent your opponent from playing, you draw again, you have another hand trap, and, you know, all they have is, like, Detonator on the field, so you just, like, normal summon a hand trap, make Typhon crash over the duo drive, or if they have any, because they're probably only going to have 1 or 2 bodies, you crash over the weakest body, and then they have Detonator, you just bounce Detonator, because you're probably going to keep them off a cross, and it's just, you know, that's it, right? And then you pass back, hand trap them again, they can't, like, if they make Detonator, like, they are not going to be able to trigger its effect, and then, you know, then you're forcing a grind state, like I said, so, and like I said, just not enough hand traps for them to play that. They also did not main deck the Charmies, because the pure version of the Ryzeals, if they get hit, unless they get hit by, like, Perulia, because, like, everyone's main decking Fua, you just, like, unless you start with, like, Ice, you're only giving your opponent 2 draws, right? So if you start with, like, EXT, and then you grab Sword, and then Special Sword Surge Ice, you can, go ahead and then your opponent can Fua you there. So you make Duo Drive, your Duo Drive resolves, you search, like, Node and Cross, and then you just go ahead and special the Ice and, like, special the Node, and then you just make Detonator and attach the Eclipse Twins, and then and then you can use the effect of the Cross, target the 2 Ryzers that you use off a Duo Drive, shuffle them back, and draw a card. So you've effectively netted a 1- with against your opponent, which they Fua'd you, right? And then they drew 2, and then you drew 1, right? And then, you know, that draw that could be more engine or a hand trap or something like that, right? And then that sets you up with Cross, 2 pops off a Detonator, it's reborn off of the Eclipse Twins, and like I said, you only gave your opponent 2 draws. And then Slayer was also very, very good against the people that were main decking the books, because, you know, if they pass on, like, Baguska, right, you hand trap your opponent, right, Droll them, whatever, they go Baguska pass, and they set, like, Book of Eclipse, like, the Slayers just single-handedly outs the Baguska, right? It just bounces it back, they lose the materials, and then, like, they can't book their own thing, right? And then, like, they'd have to, like, book your Duo Drive, like, on summon, and then the combo that they were doing just didn't allow for that, because they would make the Star Leech first. So they would make Star Leech, and then, like, so if you have, like, you would have to have 2 books set, or you'd have to have, like, you would have to have the Book of Eclipse, right? Because that one doesn't target, which the other people were playing Book of Moon, right? Which obviously you need to target. Star Leech prevents you from doing that. So yeah, we're just gonna go here real quick, and I want to show off this combo that they did here, real quick, because like I said, it's very, very good, and it's a very interesting way to look at it. So here we have them playing here. So this is the 2-card combo, kind of like the one that I showed off, which is the Ice and the 7 Tachyon, and then the 3 blanks in your hand. So they actually prefer to start off with the 7 Tachyon to prevent playing around Fua, because again, a lot of people playing Fua in the main. So they did this to check for the this was a check for Fua, right? So they would go ahead, do this, you know, put the whatever, like, bad card that they had in their hand, you know, got rid of it, put it on the top of the deck, and then here they would go ahead and special the Big Jaws, and then they would special the shark, the Drake shark here. And then this is obviously where your opponent would fool you, right? Because you have 2 4s on the board. This is where you can threaten a rank 4 XEs. And then, if they did or didn't, right, so then you would continue. If they didn't, you would continue with the ice here and special EXT to get its effect and search sword. And then at this point here, you go ahead and overlay for the Star Liege in defense position, which obviously this is the one that prevents your opponent from destroying any monsters that you control with 2,000 or more attack, or targeting them, right? So they can't be destroyed, can't be targeted, right? Which obviously with Duo Drive, right, will make this card 2,000 itself, so you lock your opponent out of being able to use Ogre, Imperm, anything like that, right? As soon as this hits the field, except for itself, right? So that if they want to Imperm, like, your like Duo Drive, they have to Imperm this, then Imperm your Duo Drive, and they can't do that because as soon as Duo hits the field, it's gonna boost this. So like they have to Imperm this on summon, and then like they have to like wait for you to like make Duo, right? And then they go ahead and they you make the shark here, which they're talking about here. They're saying your opponent has 2 chances to nib, right? Obviously when you make this, or right after Bahamut, which they're gonna show here. If you nib, it's actually really 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 bad. Because you special X, right, off of the sword, or off of the ice. So you could special sword, grab EXT, and then here you can dump the Eclipse Twins, right? And since you dump Eclipse Twins, you can bring back the Bahamut, right? And then you just make Toad, and then you can make Duo make, and then like you just continue from there, right? So it doesn't really do a whole lot. So that's the worst part to nib, right? So they're gonna go ahead and re-put the game state back to where it was. And they're going to make Toad here, right? So right now, you're insulated from nib, right? If your opponent chooses to wait, which if they had nib, they would have nibbed you here, right? For sure. Like, for sure, with these 2, they would have nibbed you, right? And now you're protected from, like, Ash and, Ogre, Imperm, stuff like that, in addition to the Toad, right? So, because they can't target Toad, because Toad's above 2,000, right? So you actually go ahead and you see them continue here. You see them, they're going to dump Duo. So they're going to special Sword, and then they're going to special EXT by dumping the another Duo Drive. So you can attach the second Duo as a 3rd material. That way, if you use your Cross Negate, it still locks your opponent under Star Liege, because Duo will have 2 materials after it detaches from this for your during their turn, because you're searching using the Star Liege's material, because it doesn't need it, right? So this will ensure through your opponent's turn that they're locked out, basically, right? No Slayer, no Metaltronus, no nothing, right? Which is very, very strong. And then they search, obviously, Cross and Node here. You activate Cross, and you can go ahead special the they special the Node here, and then I think they go ahead and they make Eclipse Twins. So they make Eclipse Twins here and send this, which it confuses me just a little bit, right? Because you don't really... the reason they do it is because they dumped the... with EXT, they dumped the other Duo Drive here. So this puts the Eclipse Twins in grave mainly for your detonator, right? So this is the reason they're doing it. And they're playing 2, so I can agree with this play. So yeah, they do this, and then you lose your targeting protection here briefly, right? Which it's already too late, right? Like if you, because you're sending this for cost, so you're gonna make this, and like they're not gonna imperm this, they're not gonna ogre this most likely, right? And if they do, no matter what hand trap it is, unless it's imperm, they're gonna get cross negated, right? And then they're still gonna be locked under the afterwards, right? Because they're gonna bring back with the Eclipse Twins the Star Liege, and like you're just cooked for the most part. But this would keep them off of like their last body. And then you go ahead, they bring back Star Liege, and then make detonator attach Eclipse Twins. Here, if you would like to as well, if you don't care about this, or let's say you didn't want to dump the duo drive off of this and instead dump a clipstone so you didn't have to do this play, you could play 2 Toad and summon another Toad here because you could bring back the Buhamid instead, and then you could then make a second Toad because you would special again. And like I said, Toad's not once per turn, so that's also an option if you would like. And then like this is your end board right here at the end. So you have your the Shark's Engrave, Cross, 3 materials. They're targeting protection lock, so you cannot target Detonator, cannot target Toad, cannot. Your Detonator's at 33, Duo is at 28, the Frog is at, I believe, like 24 or 25, if I don't remember correctly. And then your Starliege obviously is at like 21. So even with like I said, with the Cross Negate from the Duo drive, this is still giving me a 2,000, locking your opponent out of targeting you, which is pretty insane. Is pretty insane. So yeah, absolutely amazing. I think this deck is quite, obviously it's amazing. It performs super well. Moving on to the side deck here, they played 3 Lancia, right? Obviously for Malice, 3 Fua, 3 Meows, 2 Perulia, the search target for the Lancia, and then 3 Slayer. The Slayer here is interesting to me because they're only playing XYZs, right? So me personally, I would have substituted Slayer for this card. XYZ Encore. This is a quick play version of Ultimate Slayer, right? The only difference is that you don't send anything from your extra deck to the grave, right? So it doesn't, which obviously could be good or bad, right? Like Slayer sending like Aggregator or the Eclipse Stones can be very, very valuable. But XYZ Encore is also really good because your opponent cannot respond with this card at all, right? Where Slayer says you can't respond with monster effects, there's a lot of cases that, right, you could, if your opponent's playing like Strike, Judgment, stuff like Solemn Judgment or Book of Eclipse or something like that, your opponent could like chain like Book of Eclipse or something like this, like a quick play spell, quick play like a trap, counter trap, whatever, to this, and then chain their own like Detonator, right? Like they could go like book, target their own Detonator, chain their, and then and then like flip it face down, or they could something along those lines. Whereas this, where Solemn Judgment and like Solemn Strike are still prevalent in the format, this prevents your opponent from activating those effects, right? They even said like this card was really crazy when they actually got Solemn. They had 2 in hand and they got Judgmented on their Slayer, so they just activated again, right? So because this card isn't once per turn, which this I believe is, if I remember correctly. No, this card is not once per turn either, right? So this is a soft once per turn. Or it's not even a soft once per turn. It's just not once per turn. So you can do this too, and this is a quick play. So your opponent, like you can shotgun this in draw phase and prevent your opponent from like Dweller-ing you, right? Which is actually better into your deck because you're also playing Toad. And like obviously like making Dweller against Eclipse Stones, which obviously they're playing Dweller, is still good, right? Because it cuts your opponent off from grinding with you, right? If they can make Dweller, and if they have Engine in hand, you just get cooked, right? So you have priority because Dweller is a quick effect during your turn. If you have 2 of these in hand opposed to these 2, you don't get cooked by Dweller, right? So you have this. Another option, obviously, Metaltronus, another card. The difference between this and the Encore is that you can ash this card, right? So if your opponent has hand traps in hand and like you target their Detonator, they can go ahead and ash you, right? Which obviously that's not a bad thing, right? Getting a hand trap out of hand is by no means something to scoff at. But like I said, with the Encore here, your opponent is not allowed to respond to you, which I think And then also, this locks your opponent out of EXT, because if there are any materials under the card that you hit, if there's monster cards in the graveyard among those attached materials, supposed to summon as many of those monsters as possible from the graveyard to your opponent's field and up into face-up defense position. Their levels are reduced by 1 on the field. So, like I said, this is mainly better against like Dweller and stuff like that, and this also prevents their Eclipse Twins from triggering, right? So this will bring back their Eclipse Twins and under their detonator, and then you could like put them like all in like defense position, and then like they didn't do anything, right? So you cut them off of the Eclipse Twins, right, if they have more than 2 in the grave, and then they have the other 2 bodies that are 3s, which will cut them off of X, which is their best way to break back into your board with Aggregator. So, like I said, just my personal opinion, right? Maybe if I played something similar to this, I might have considered playing XYZ Encore. But yeah. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and talk about Jesse Cotton's list here, which he played the so special, totally not generic Fiendsmith Raziel deck. 3 Engraver, 3 sword, 3 Ice, 2 Sword, 1 Node, 1 Lacrima, 3 EXT, 3 Fool in the main, 3 Ash, 1 Ogre for the crossout target, 1 Lurie, 3 Droll, 1 Veiler for the crossout target, 3 of the Bonfire, 2 Track, 3 of the Talent, as similar to the other deck list, including the 1 Call By and 3 of the Designators, the Cross, the Paradise, and then the 3 Imperm, bringing his count to 42. As you can see, he's not playing Nib, but if you look into his extra deck here, he's playing the DDD High Wave King Caesar, which, he doesn't need to play the crossout, because if he sees this, he could just, even if he sees like Ice, right, or like his normal summon, he's gonna force out Nib anyways, right? So it doesn't matter for his matchup. In the extra deck, he's playing like the generic list, right? The only thing that I don't like about his list is playing the Moon, which even himself saying, he was like, I don't know why I played this card. Like, he was just like, oh, I heard this card, like, was good, and I should have played it. I definitely think this should have been a second Requiem, right? Requiem is just too good. Let's see. Here we go. Especially with Malice playing like, the Bestials and stuff as their hand traps and extenders. Having the second Requiem is just goated, in my opinion. Which I believe he also mentioned himself that he would have played a second Requiem. So yeah. Another thing that I didn't like was the fact that he is playing only 1 of the Eclipse Twins. And then also there's no Aggregator in his list. So it's just like like I said, it's very very tight. I think personally, right, if I were to also like make any changes to this deck, and I would think make it just slightly better. Actually, main decking the 1 Nibiru for the cross out, and then like taking out like DDD and Necroquip is an option, right? But obviously this deck performed, right? This deck, is tried and true. This deck's figured out for the most part, right? The only maybe difference here is the obviously like the Veiler count and the Droll count, right? Where more often people were playing the Veiler, where now they realize, wait, Droll is actually really good. It doesn't do a lot into the Fiendsmith stuff, but it does cut them from the Raziels. And like if you start with Tracked, right, like you can pass on like DDD or the Desiree, which it's probably better you passing on Desiree in this format, mainly because of Ultimate Slayer cannot be targeted as long as it has the sequence equipped, right? And then and like he's also playing the Chaos Angel, like 2 detonators, standard, Exciton. Like again, he did not need to play the Closed Moon because he has already this, right? So he could have made this and shuffled this back into his deck, unless it gets Bestialed, right? Which Moon would get Bestialed anyways, right? And then he's also playing the Gravekeeper's Inscription in his side deck, which he actually played as another Malice hit for the most part, from my understanding, right? The other player can banish cards from the graveyard, which does turn off your Paradise, But this just hits Malice so hard that you don't even need this, right? Until the following like 4th turn, right? If you go first, as the only time that this would become applicable, and you would still be able to dump it to the graveyard with Lacrima. So he's also playing the Meows and then the Perulia. Because he's already main decking the Fool, right? So he just maxed out on all the Molcharmies. Which obviously, if you did not notice, they did not main deck the Molcharmies in the Shark version. They rather side it, which I completely understand, right? Because they're main decking the Droll, so these conflict, right? You know, you don't want to like, oh, I lost a dice roll, and I see Droll and Fool in my hand. I'm like, no, right? So they felt like this was overall just more impactful because like Pure can play around this, right? Because they're obviously playing it themselves. So, you know, but yeah, so that kind of wraps up the video, guys. Like I said, I wanted to like touch bases on this deck, and you know, it won, right? And just, you know, really prove the point that I was making about why the Sharks are so strong. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.